Hey, welcome everyone. In this video, we're doing a review of the Fable 2 solo player campaign. This game was originally released in 2008 on Xbox 360, but this review was done on Xbox Series X thanks to it being available on Xbox Game Pass. Now, I just want to give a fair warning to viewers. I know a lot of people keep this game close to their heart, mainly for nostalgic reasons. I'm emphasizing my warning here because it'll sound like I'm ripping the game apart because of the poorly written story, which is an important element to any RPG. Some people might hit the dislike button instantly for what I explained because they really like this game, but the reality is that it was a game with great potential but turned out disappointing. This game had moments of great wit and charm that I thoroughly enjoyed.
The mouth of evil was left.
Just try to cut me some slack and hear me out. If you still plan to play this game after this review, keep in mind it's not for kids. It looks fun for kids, but it has some extremely dark elements meant for adults. Now, I'm not going to give any spoilers throughout this review, but let's backtrack, shall we? The story takes place in Albion, the same region that was used in the original Fable game, but 500 years after the events of the first game. You don't need to play Fable 1 to play Fable 2. At the beginning of the game, you start off as a kid, experience something tragic, and grow up to fight a great evil threat. To do so, you must recruit 3 more hero members to your cause. Your interactions with 2 of the 3 members is minimal at best, so you don't really build a relationship with them. In fact, one of them is recruited practically near the end of the game. Perhaps the most strangest thing is that other NPCs in the game don't care about what's happening. We're told there is someone with godlike powers about to blow up the entire nation and mold things to his desire, but no one seems to care. People walk around villages going about their day, guards just do their day-to-day stuff. You would expect there to be a panic in the area. Perhaps the leaders of regions preparing their armies and enforcing a mandatory army enrollment for people that are able to carry arms. But most of the NPCs don't seem to care at all. Some people might argue that I'm being too harsh because the game is almost 13 years old by the time I do this review, but that's not true. Games that are even older do an amazing job, such as Knights of the Old Republic from 2003. You don't need good graphics to have a great game, but when an RPG fails at telling a good story, it's downright disappointing. One of the worst things about Fable 2 is that it copies too many important elements from the first Fable story. Let's break it down to how it impacts you, the gamer, and how many times it copies from the first Fable game. Starting with 1, the game starts you off as an innocent child. You are targeted by bad guys for unknown reasons at this point. You experience a tragic event that changes your life forever. A mysterious person with magical powers saves you and takes you in within the first 15 minutes of the game. You grow into an adult seeking justice. You are told your bloodline is special and you're a threat to the main villain. You're never told in detail why your bloodline is special. The interactions with the main villain are so minimal that you don't really have that big of a grudge against him as you progress throughout the game. You kind of forget about the tragic events that happen to your character at the beginning of the game. The main villain is just hardly ever shown. Throughout the entire game, the main character has the personality of a brick. They're dull, boring, and just stand there during interactions. In fact, in Fable 2, throughout the game, major NPCs will constantly mention how quiet and boring your character is. The most your character will do is make gestures at your command during gameplay. During dialogue and cutscenes, the main character will hardly shrug their shoulders. They just kind of stand there like a piece of cardboard. There's actually 2 more major events, but talking about them would spoil the story. I'll just say that the ending was perhaps the worst part. Things just happen without any reason. It also had perhaps the worst boss fight in a major release game, because there practically wasn't one. There was no ending fight. The game just ended out of convenience and you'll feel cheated after hours of gameplay. If you focus only on the main quest, you can probably beat this game within 14 hours. If I had known about my next point, I would have completed it way faster. My next point being is that you can't die. No, seriously, you can't die. If your health bar is depleted in combat, your character will get knocked out, you'll lose experience, but you continue fighting as much as you want. Whenever your character is defeated, they'll accumulate scars, but that's not important. After I realized my character couldn't die, it took away from the excitement of combat, especially when I achieved enough experience points for the spell I invested in. I invested in the fire spell that let my character shoot fireballs or do area damage. I just kept making the spell more powerful and hammered on the spell button during combat because I knew my character wouldn't die, and this cleared wave of enemies the fastest. This also made combat boring. It's unfortunate because you can quickly switch between melee, range, and spell combat incredibly fast. It had a lot of potential. Just like a typical RPG, you can invest in combat skills to make your character stronger. Some of the stronger opponents are useless. They move so slow that you can hit them and run, and so on. On a positive note, one of the great things about the game is the morality system. You can be a completely evil person and wreak havoc to those around you, or be an incredible hero. The decisions you make affect your character's appearance. This morality system goes deep. Decisions you make in the game impact the environment of the game later on. It's a well-made system. The combat aiming mechanics have been greatly improved compared to the first game. In the first game, you have targeting on an enemy. If you defeat them, the main character starts targeting nothing. It was frustrating, but fixed in Fable 2. Other combat mechanics are simple and kept similar to the first game. One button for melee, another for range, and another for casting spells is simple, but works well. An annoying element kept from the first game is in order to collect experience, you have to hold down a button and watch your character collect experience orbs. This makes no sense, and experience should have just collected automatically. When it comes to melee combat, at the beginning of the game, my weapon did next to no damage. It was annoying, so I started taking jobs which are completely optional. It's a fast, easy way to make money in the game. These jobs are easy enough, but the mechanics are pretty repetitive. You can even earn more gold by investing in property, by renting out houses, or owning shops. There's also your dog, which is a hit and miss. He's your companion that follows you pretty much the whole game, but he's nearly useless. He'll have basic attacks like biting an enemy when they're down, but most of the time he does nothing. His best attribute is finding minor treasure close to you. In fact, he's so buggy that he's invisible most of the time. Other bugs I noticed is weird character body mechanics, but that wasn't too common, thankfully. There are some interesting elements thrown on the side, such as starting a potential relationship and potentially getting married. Depending on what your character eats, they also gain weight. The more in shape your character is, the more attractive NPCs will find you. Maps are larger than the first game, which is great, but there's a weird blurring effect as your character runs. On Xbox 360, people thought it was an issue with frame rate and the console not keeping up. On Xbox Series X, it's still present, which means it was intentionally done. I'm not sure why the developers chose to do that, because it's rather straining on the eye. Lastly is sound. This is where Fable 2 actually shines very well. Voice acting is spot on, and some of the dialogue is written quite well. Characters do well at expressing their frustration or making you laugh.
The shadows just can't get enough sacrifices. Jolly well love them, they do. Each victim you bring into the sacrificial circle earns you a nice little bundle of loyalty points.
Look, if you got this far, I'm going to say it again. You probably hit the dislike button because you just hate what I had to say, but it's true. I don't recommend this game. It copies too many elements from the first game in terms of story. Your character can't die, so you don't feel challenged during combat. Side missions and jobs are incredibly repetitive. There's minimal interaction with the main NPCs, and the list goes on. If you're already paying for Xbox Game Pass and curious to play this game, then go for it. But I don't recommend spending a penny on it. Well, that's pretty much a wrap from me. I hope you found this video useful. Be sure to check out my social links in the video description, and thanks for watching.